I hope everyone had a wonderful Labor Day weekend, and I hope you spent it not working. Is the festivity for Labor Day? It's just staying up all night, not working until 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and you have a not working hangover. Just wild day of not working in the morning, not working in the afternoon, not working in the evening, not working into the wee hours of the night, just not working really hard. It's the best thing to do is to be lazy. And what better way to not work than with Il Taco Foods' famous pizza puff? El Taco Foods has been feeding the hungry people of Chicago since 1927. Their most popular item, the pizza puff, became a Chicago staple almost as soon as it hit the very first hot dog stand in the city of Chicago. For those that don't know, a pizza puff is premium mozzarella, crumbled Italian sausage, and a signature home-style sauce wrapped in a pillowy yet crispy crust. And that is just the original. They have 14 different flavors. Would recommend the pulled pork barbecue. Personal recommendation. Pulled pork barbecue pizza puffs, delicious. You can learn more about the other flavors and where to buy them from their website, www.eltaco.com. Through 4 generations of hard work and a passion for good food, their family-run business now distributes Chicago's pizza puff in 38 states across the U.S. So it does not really matter where you live. You can probably get it. Check out the website to find out where you can get the good stuff. Again, that's iltaco.com. Now, today, our guest is Dan Byars. Dan used to be, or he is a retired Green Beret, so he used to be a Green Beret military, who now is a uniquely talented cornhole player. I bet you didn't see that coming. That's a transition. Dan is probably going to be breaking in soon to being a professional cornhole player, but for right now, he is an incredibly talented, viral sensation of trick shots in cornhole. So we've all played cornhole in backyards, parties, tailgating, whatever. First of all, if you didn't know, there's professionals that they aired some of it on ESPN2 during the pandemic when they had nothing else to play. And these professionals are actually really good. There's a big difference between playing in your backyard and being a professional, and Dan and I get into that a little bit, what the differences are. But Dan is incredibly talented with trick shots. We're going to talk about some of those right now, and I'm going to recommend that you check them out on his Instagram channel, @WashedUpWarrior. Just a amazingly talented guy and a really nice guy and a really determined person. And you're going to hear about that, the link between his background in the military, also as a sponsored skateboarder before that, into being a cornhole player. Like, what is the determination? What is the mental aspect of that allows him to pull off such ridiculous shots and be so good at a sport that a lot of us just play casually for fun? So it's really interesting interview, really interesting guy. And we tackle a lot of angles around this game that we all enjoy, but we're not as good as Dan. So I hope you enjoy the interview with Dan Byars.
Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Kaiser.
No! God, please, no! 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 No!
I went out to eat for the sake of this next joke. Joke.
For the deviled cheese and sausage.
Joe Kaiser, ladies and gentlemen.
You're reading any news article about you, or I read the thing in Sports Illustrated, you wouldn't connect former retired a Green Beret with cornhole. So, like, how did that transition kind of happen, or is there any link to that at all? Like, what happened from the time that you left the military to jumping into this this field?
Yeah, I got introduced to the game by my younger sister. She went to East Carolina University, so we'd go up there when I was at Fort Bragg and see her on the weekends. And that's a huge tailgating sport, so she was actually really good at it. And so we would play a little bit at the tailgates and whatnot. And then I think a couple years later, she and I actually did a tournament at my buddy's brewing company in Southern Pines, and we got second place. And she's pretty good. And I was like, oh, okay, we're all right. So then I kind of just played it. We made our own set of boards and played it in our front yard or whatever, but nothing really seriously. And then I just really didn't have too much time in the military. And then I think I retired about 3 years ago and moved back out to San Diego and we started playing more heavily. Like my brother-in-law got into it, and I have a friend that puts on a tournament in the town we live in, and it's a fundraiser for cystic fibrosis. And it's a big turnout, and it's really fun because we live in a really small town, and we know everybody. It's almost like a reunion, a big party, and everyone's just raising money and having fun. And we got second place in that one as well. So that's when we really were like, okay, yeah, we're good, or we're decent, I guess. So then we just started playing with each other, just the regular game, getting better. And he's my teammate. So you can play the game individually and or with teams. And so we started playing as teammates and against, just friends in the yards and stuff like that. And then I got a little more interested in it. And here in San Diego, they have a big, the game is actually pretty big. Every night of the week before quarantine there's a place to play, and it's usually at a brewery. And my friend puts them on, and it's $5 or $10 to get in, and you meet new people and play. And but then quarantine happened and everything kind of shut down. They shut down the businesses, and that game, obviously during quarantine, you really can't play, especially indoors. So I started playing, just practicing the game by myself. And that got kind of, it's fun. I love the game, but it just got a little bit boring. And so there's a huge garage where you see some of the videos. It's at my mom's house when I come out and visit her. And I just looked at any random items that I could, like just bounce stuff off of. And there was one old filing cabinet. And so I set that in the middle between the two boards, and I bounced 8 in a row off of it, and I couldn't even see the hole. And then so I showed the video. I just filmed it on my cell phone to my brother-in-law, and he said, "Man, that's really, really good. Like really good. You should probably, start a social media page and stuff." So that's what I did. But I really got into it because I wanted to stay busy.
Sure.
Yeah, it kept my mind focused, and I'm on the philosophy of you got to challenge yourself each day, especially your mind and your physically. You got to do that as well for health, and especially during the times where everyone's, you stay in your own little bubble and you don't really get out. So
yeah, I was gonna say, like right now, especially, you're gonna have to find something to do and channel whatever energy that you have pent up. I've taken up a lot of running recently. Other people have like creative outlets to use during quarantine if they found something. So that's really cool that just in a short period of time that you've pulled off something that people watch and they think like, how the hell did he pull that off? It's kind of crazy. I wanted to go back to one thing you said about in San Diego, like there's games all the time. It seems like this has blown up within the last few years, like really fast. Like I remember playing in yards a few years ago, and it was kind of like it felt like a new thing. Yeah. And all of a sudden, the last couple of years now, it's on TV. Like, yeah. Did you play before you were the tailgate you mentioned a couple of years ago? Did you have any familiarity with the game?
No, just a little bit. No, just a little bit. I'd seen it played. Maybe played a couple times growing up, but not really much at all. I was really into skateboarding and that type of surfing and stuff like that. So I didn't really, I probably first played it, 3, maybe 5 years ago or whatever, but seriously, like starting to play it, like games and stuff, was a couple years ago with my brother-in-law, really. But the trick shots, that was the first one was in April, and that was the cabinet one. Yeah, that was the cabinet one. And then once he was giving me ideas, and then I would send the videos to my friends on my cell phone. Like, hey, I tried to start. What they did was they had these once the quarantine happened here in San Diego, because the sport is so popular. They started these virtual tournaments. So basically, you could go on Zoom and play a group of people, but you're really not. You're playing them, but you have your board set up and say, hey, you have 40 bags to throw. Whoever has the most points after 40 bags wins, right? So I tried that a couple of times. It was really frustrating and boring, and so that's what really drove me over to the trick shots, because like it's just one way to get really creative and stay busy with my mind. And it's like, what can I do today? I'll spend an hour on it, and if I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't, and I'll just move on to the next day. But I would send them to my friends, and they liked it. So then that's when we started the social media page, and they give me ideas and stuff, and then I try them out and see how they went, and went from there.
How long does one take to perfect?
It depends on what it is, but I try because you can go all day with these things. When I grew up, I was a sponsored skateboarder, and I think the creativity that I have in my head for these trick shots came from skateboarding.
Probably. Yeah.
I was a street skateboarder, and you got to be very creative in your mind to look at a handrail or a set of stairs or a ledge. You look at it like, well, I could do that down that. It's just a different way of thinking. So I've always had that. I've never gotten out of my head, because I skateboarded for at least 15, 16, 17 years, and 10 of that or 11 of that was as, sponsored here in San Diego, where it's like one of the meccas for skateboarding. So just carried that over. But I could try those tricks. There's been skateboard tricks where all day long I've tried them, and you just come back and get it. But for some of these, I think 2 of the tricks took me 2 sessions, but I try to limit myself to 1 hour, about 15 minutes of create. If I don't write it out, or ahead of time, like on a sketch on a piece of paper or something, or just in my head, I'll show up and be like, okay, I have about an hour. I'll take about 15 minutes to think of something that I want to do. And then I'll set it up and get a couple tries at it to make sure I can get it dialed in. And then I'll film it. But it's about an hour that I'll stop. So Some of them I've nailed like third try, like
That's awesome.
The moving van where I'm at an angle and it's down the street, I throw it. That was third try. And I've done that 3 times. And so, but some of them are pretty difficult, like the over the back skateboard one onto the roof while I'm on the skateboard. That took about 35 tries over 2 sessions. So
that's wild.
I nailed that one 3 times.
That's what that skateboarding background plays into that well, because I think people who don't skateboard underestimate how many times you're falling down before you perfect something in skateboarding. And that's something that there's so much creativity that goes in that too, that people don't realize. Yeah,
big time. And what it does is carries over to, you fail way more than you succeed, right? And then it helps you with perseverance and really like testing it out and getting closer and closer and closer. And then just because, some of these you have to have your mind 100% right, the focus, or some of these shots are so hard, it's not even going to go near the, I've had some where I'm not really focused and it's not even close, but then you just use the techniques and everything. And then you just slowly get it in and dial it in and nail it. It's really fun.
So what was what was it like going from April to now I don't know what it was like at first if it took off right away, but now you're getting thousands of views and you have like local news outlets writing about it and different blogs writing about it and taking snippets and people interested in what you're doing. Was that a weird thing to see like your little creative outlet all of a sudden blowing up to a thing that's on news sites and you're doing interviews on and stuff? What was that whole journey like?
Yeah, it was really cool. Like I didn't expect it to go like that. I started when my brother-in-law said, "Hey, start this," and I didn't really know anything about social media because I never really had it, just based off of the work we were doing in the military. And so I had another page and I started it just to see, and the success was like not much, there were some people liked, definitely my friends. But then after it started going like that, it was really cool. It's really cool to see a viral video go.
Yeah.
Like it's interesting and see how busy, like, I don't know. It was just really neat. You see the numbers, see all the comments, and it's actually pretty exciting to see this. Hey, I did this and this many people like it.
Yeah.
And some don't, but that's whatever, but it's funny.
Well, it's crazy with it.
They're hilarious. Some of the comments.
Oh, I'm sure.
Like, why is this on ESPN? Like, I don't know. Ask them.
Right. Especially the last few months when they didn't have sports on, they had cornhole on like a lot on ESPN.
Oh
too,
yeah.
Trying to fill the time. There's just so many
to see that. It was cool.
Yeah. With so many content creators out there, like not just on Instagram, but now like on TikTok and stuff, there are so many people trying to find a thing that sticks and that can take off and go viral.
Right.
The fact that you didn't really have social media before and then like just harnessed your creative energy and tapped into something a few months ago and saw it take off and still growing is pretty unique. Like that doesn't happen that often.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's just fun. I think but even if that didn't still take off, I'd still be doing, the trick shots and stuff like that, just because I really like there are hard challenges for me. Like some of them are really, really hard, like really difficult. And it takes all that, all the things that I learned in skateboarding and in the military to focus on it, like really, really focus and try to get something done that's really, really difficult. And once you get it, it's satisfying, but it lasts for like a minute, and then and I'll just move on to the next trick, like, okay, I got that one.
Right.
Now what's next? And let's go to the next one, and let's go to the next one. And some days I've been like really, really like tuned in for tossing bags, and I'll get 3, 4, 5, or 6 like in one day. And like, I'm like, okay, I got another hour. I'll just try 4 more and then get them. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, well, it is something that always, like, there's always the next one that you can do, you can invent, which is cool. So it's like no end to it. What are some of your goals with the whole thing? Because now that you're getting a lot of views, what do you hope to get out of it besides just being creative?
Yeah, I mean, I really love the game. Like, I really, really do like it. I mean, it's a fun game when you're playing against somebody, but mainly it's really social, and you get to meet a lot of different people. I mean, there is a wide range of people in this sport. I mean, like, one of the top players in the world right now is like 18 years old. Like, he literally just graduated high school, and he just kills everybody. You know what I mean? And then I've got friends that are of all ages and we play with. I really like that atmosphere. And then the challenge too, there's some people out here that are really, really good. And then you get really into a competitive game and get into it. And it's like very, there's like, strategy and against different players, if this guy's or gal's sliding it in the hole every time, then you put one in front. And then if you put one in front, then you got to be really good at just airmailing, meaning going over and getting straight in. It's a battle back and forth. And then, if you're off, you're going to get beat by someone that's probably not as good as you. They were just really good at that time. So I really appreciate that. But I think I want to keep bringing recognition to the game through a unique outlet. I think people will look at that and go, okay, wow, I've seen cornhole, but I've never seen that before. But then it'll bring more attention to the game as well. And I do want to play competitively down the road once the quarantine starts to get lifted and more places open up, and start doing that more seriously. I'll still do the trick shots and stuff, but I really want to get into the actual like real game, and start playing it very seriously.
It's a pretty socially distant sport, so hopefully they open up.
Yeah, what we've been doing, like, we had a tournament this past weekend, a huge one, a really, really big one. Like top players in the world were there. I think the number 2 and 3 players were there playing. And you just wear a mask and stay separate and stuff like that. But they're starting to open stuff up over here. So it's I think mid-September we'll be able to play a lot more. I think the breweries are going to allow people to go inside and do all that stuff. So we'll start.
It's crazy how I mentioned this before about how it's blown up so quickly, where I can't pinpoint like when exactly I first started playing, but it was kind of like a tailgate thing, like a thing in backyards at parties. And now like they're legitimately professional players, or like you said, some of the best players in the world. I don't even know if you know like how that progression took place, where it just exploded, I think, in like the last decade. Like, what happened that made it so huge?
Yeah, what I think is that the American Cornhole League, the ACL, is the premier league that has the contract with ESPN and Johnsonville and that particular area. And I think they were able to get a lot of, I think their partnership with ESPN really, really made a lot of that happen. And where people could see like the elite level of players, because you can go to any tournaments, like at a fire station or a backyard barbecue or something, or a school or at a festival or something, and there's like the number 1 and 2 player in the world playing, and they're just playing the game. And then they were able to take all of those people, create a pool of professionals, and then put them on a national sports network. And I think that helped tremendously. Big time, because when you got to see how consistent and really good these players are, and I think it motivated people to get out. And I think really anyone can play it. Anyone can play it.
Totally.
And that's the thing. It's like, it's a simple game, like it's a bag that you just throw and land on a board and try to make it in the hole. Some of this, some of it's difficult, but at the base of it, it's a pretty simple game that you could easily set up, and you can play it for fun. You can play it competitively, like really competitively, or you can play it kind of competitively and just talk crap to your friends. You know, it's just really, it's a good social game, I think.
Right.
So, really, like you had a party, you don't have that many people, you know, a barbecue or something, you set those up and you start playing, and then you have to talk to them, and then all of a sudden it just goes in. It's neat for that.
It's really, really easy entry into the sport. Like there are games like basketball has always been a pretty cheap sport to pick up as a kid. Like you need a pair of shoes and a ball and to find a hoop. But like hockey is like way more expensive. So less kids play it, or like more privileged kids. Like golf's kind of expensive. So this is like all time a pretty easy thing to get into because you can play casually. It's cheap. You just have some friends and you can make it happen.
Yeah. And you don't need much space, you know, and, it's great. It's not that, you know, it doesn't really cost much. I mean, a couple $100 for all the right stuff, and that's it. And then it'll last for a long time, like a long time.
I think a lot of people would probably think, myself included, like that there's not much going on. We've played casually and there's not much going on in terms of, we know some of the strategy of like the things you mentioned, but what is the difference between the elite player and then the person casually playing in their backyard? Like what are some like strategies or some skill things that differentiate the elite players from just like a casual or semi-casual player?
Yeah, their hand-eye coordination is really off the charts, and their level of focus is really high, and they're very consistent. Like there are pros that can make the two guys that they're paired up this last tournament. They made 40 in a row in a competition. Like that's pretty
wild. Yeah.
So I think that'll separate it. The concentration, the higher level of hand-eye coordination, but really the concentration and focus is probably the number one thing, and being able to deal with, a little bit of nerves. I can only imagine what the nerves are like on ESPN and stuff. I mean, a backyard tournament or something, it's not going to be a huge deal or whatnot, but being able to take that and channel it to what they want to do, and then I think the elite players also have a really, really, really good understanding of the full strategy of the game, down to obviously how many throws. They're probably thinking 2-3 throws ahead of the one that they're doing now. That's how I play it. Hey, this
kind of like chess. Yeah.
If I barely miss one bag and it's off to the right, but it's close enough, well, I still have 3 more bags left, and I could hit the corner of it and slowly inch that closer to the hole, and then hopefully by the 4th bag that I throw, I'll knock both of them in. Or this guy, he's so good at hitting the board and just sliding it in. I'm just going to put a bag right in front, and I know that person's not that good at throwing it over, so they'll miss 50% of the time. And if I can make it 75% of the time, I'm going to probably win.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Just I think thinking of a game that people play casually, and there's these people, because like I play chess somewhat casually, and then you hear about people that are chess savants and will beat you in 2 moves or like 3 moves, and it's like I didn't know this whole world existed with a game like this.
It's pretty in depth. And then they have, there's different types of bags and stuff. But I like an example of an elite player would be, you're playing against a person, and the hole's at the top of the board, but there's a little bit of space before it can fall off the back, about 3 or 4 inches. And let's say the opponent tried to hit a bag and it went around the hole, and it's resting on the back. An elite player they're always thinking about how can I get more points. So they would throw their bag over, hit the other bag off the board, and then make theirs in. Yeah, that's what we've been perfecting. A lot of the trick shots I've been doing for those. Yeah, and they're like about now, you know what I mean? And like if those were the only 2 bags on the board, or that board, so if a bag lands on top of the board, that's 1 point. If it goes in the hole, it's 3 points. So if there were no other bags on the board and the opponent's bag is on the back, you have 1 bag. You throw it, knock theirs off, and it gets in, well, you have 3 points. If that bag would have stayed on there, you only get 2. Because it's cancellation scoring. And so that those elite level players win by 1 and 2 sometimes. Sometimes they blow each other out, but like it's little things like that could win you the game. And if you could perfect that kind of shot, so that'd be an elite player would think like that and actually attempt to take that shot. And they would train themselves to do that shot too. That's what I'm doing all the time. Like these trick shots, I set the boards up the same distance as much as I can of the real game, outside of some of the wazoo shots, and practice that. So it helps the same distance, but really, really difficult shots that are just off. Like you would never even think of trying it, but if you saw the presentation in the game, you try it.
Yeah.
Like I was playing my brother yesterday and I knocked 2 bags off and made mine in the game. So then there we go. I got 3 when I would only had 1, that type of stuff. And the trick shots totally helped that 100%. I would have never thought of that if I wasn't doing trick shots or practice them,
That's so cool. That's what I love about this. And there's like a few other games like pool. I think like if you're an elite dart player, you might think about this too. Is like the mental, the strategic aspect to it, where it's like you have to think a couple steps ahead. Is so much more interesting than just like, not that like a physical ability versus physical ability isn't interesting, but just like the strategic angle to a game like this is so fascinating to me, and it just requires another skill set that like only a few people have, or maybe if you practice it, you can develop something like that. But that extra angle to the game is really fascinating.
Yeah, it'll definitely give the edge up for a person. And I think like the mental aspect, the focus is a big deal. I take a lot of my focus tactics from what we've used learning. I mean, we did a ton of marksmanship in the military, and especially coming from the special operations community with both pistol and rifle and stuff. I mean, a lot. I mean, like hundreds of thousands of iterations of shooting and all different, from helicopters, from cars, walking, standing. I take that same philosophy over to cornhole, from all the way from the down to the way that I stand, like when I was taught how to shoot in the military, there were fundamentals that they taught, and it's how you stand, it's how you grip the weapon, it's how you pull the trigger, it's how you line the sights up, it's how you follow through, and there's basic fundamentals. And so I adopted those to how I throw. Every time I go to the board, I start with whatever surface I'm connected to, whether it's grass or the concrete. I start from there, and then I work up. I put my my leg in the same exact spot all the time. I grab the bag the same exact way. I line it up the same exact way. I toss it the same exact way. I spin it generally the same exact way depending on the shot, and I follow through the same exact way every time. And I visualize it before that too. Sometimes really quick and sometimes not so quick if it's a really hard shot. I try to visualize it in my mind, but I apply that to every single shot, because it's a game of repetitiveness over and over and over. And that's where those elite players can get 40 in a row, because they're literally doing the same exact thing every time, and they're so consistent with it.
So your skill, your experience in the military probably has you uniquely positioned to jump into that.
And handling like you're just getting yourself like nothing else matters but that right there, and what it is, but still nothing else matters at that moment, but you're still thinking 2-3 steps ahead at the same time, if that makes sense.
No, it totally does.
Yeah.
It probably helps for the focus for the trick shot too, and planning and getting that down to an hour.
Yeah, and realistic expectations, right? Like, I mean, you tried a couple of times, you're like, yep, that's not, and then having the ability to shift and be flexible and go to something else.
Plus, too,
let's try
like
this.
Somebody else may have given up at a certain point. If you're an hour or 2 hours into it, you're like, oh, this was a fun idea to do this at first, but this is stupid. I'm not going to get it done.
But I guess that's the difference between people just keep nugging it out, and that's what happened with the one that where the van was driving away. The biggest video I had, and I hit the 4 bags. That took 2 or 3 sessions. And my wife was driving the van, and the last one, I'm done. I was like, it's 45 minutes, we're done. And then she just said, try it one more time. And that was it. I tried it one more time. So she helped me out on that one big time. And that one lined up just perfectly. Like I hit 3 in a row so many times, probably like 20 times. It was so frustrating. I couldn't get the 4th one in. And then when that I saw exactly what was happening. So I put the first one in, and it kind of slid next to the hole, almost in, but enough where I knew I could push it in. Then the next one did the same thing off to the side, and then the next one did it on the other side. And then so in a game, it's a perfect setup for what we call a 3-bag push shot. So you want to aim a lower trajectory and hit as many of them as you can, but mainly in the center, so it pulls all in. And I saw that, and I was like, oh, I can't miss this last one, because that was out of all those shots, that was the most perfect setup to where I could just, that last shot, get them all in. And I think it made it way more dramatic, and it just made the video like way better. Instead of just sinking every 4 in a row, that was just way more fun. Because that last shot was like, you got to get it, because that's not going to happen again.
Do you have that was, I think that was the coolest one, but do you have any, building off that, do you have any ideas for anything crazier, like any concepts that are kind of floating around your head that you'd like to try that might seem a little difficult? But
yeah, like we have one that I've tried once, and it's off a jet ski. So we've got a surfboard, and it's called Scurfing. And so you just get a tow rope, and you got like a surfboard you surf in the ocean, and you just stand up and you surf around. And so the jet ski is pulling me, and I put the board on the shore. It's probably like a 50-foot shot, and as the jet ski comes around, I'm on the back of it, and then throw it. I hit the hole last time, and the bag was too wet, and it skipped over and it bounced out. So that's going to be a really good one. And we had a drone out there filming, and the bag leaves, and the drone like follows the bag. It's really cool.
That's cool.
But yeah,
that's
my
really
buddy.
Cool.
It just takes a little bit of time, because I need at least 2 people to help me with that. And so we'll get back to it probably within the next week or so, maybe 2 weeks. But that's going to be a pretty cool one. But if you look at my page, I was just looking at it earlier, like how it's kind of evolved. Like in the beginning, I was doing like on the roof, over the back, like moving targets, like on crazy vehicles and stuff. And I try to get way more technical. I want to try to do like crazy shots on like moving targets, or when I'm moving, or those types of things over the back, but also like really, really technical shots that are actually play off of real shots that have been in games, like I did where we call it the and one shot, where where I was telling you, where you're always thinking about getting more points, where the bag's on the back and you want to knock it off. Well, I did that with 2 bags. So I had 2 bags in my hand. I already did it with one, like a lot. So I was like, oh, I'll just do it with 2 bags. So I did it with 2 bags right-handed, knocked it off, put my 2 bags in, and then I did it right with the left hand. I'm just trying to mix up that type of stuff, like really, really technical things that will still help me in the real game,
Yeah, that might be an interesting addition to the videos, is showing stuff that would be played in a real game. Because like someone like me, who's played a decent amount, like parties and stuff, had no idea like some of the strategy that went into some of this. So that might be like a good addition too, is like showing different strategies and how to navigate some of that stuff. Yeah,
we're going to start filming some of the games we play in the backyards and stuff like that. Because we did one where it's on there. It's called the Ninja Star tutorial. There's this guy we play with, and everyone makes fun of him. His name's Ross, but his wrist or something's really messed up, so he throws the bag vertically, right, like a ninja star. So it goes, which generally for a cornhole bag is not designed for that, because it goes like this, and when it hits, it's kind of unpredictable where it goes. You want it flat and land flat. But he's really good at it. And so there's situations where you need to get more points, or the goal is to obviously win, and the opponent has like bags that are around the hole, covering the hole, but maybe 25% of it's available. If you did a regular airmail and hit that, you're probably going to pull both of their bags in and yours. So then you gave them 6 points, you got 3. So you really gave them 3 points. You don't really want to do that. Yeah. So I was like, oh, well, I'll do the Ross. I'll do the Ninja Star. And I practice the Ninja Star if there's just a little bit of gap. And I perfected that. And I made a tutorial on how to do that. And I did it in our game 2 weeks ago. Oh, that's like really cool. Yeah. And I didn't have it on video. So I'm going to try to film them just so we could revisit it back and go like, yeah, this like really works in a game. I did it. It's like a really low percentage shot, but you never know. Like if you have to have that shot to win the game, why not practice it? It looks weird. Is there an absolutely correct form, or are people trying all different kinds of things, or is there one correct way? I think the form with the bag, like the way that people step and, you know, the way they move before they throw, there's a lot of different variations to that. But the way that the bag goes, there's generally like a proper way. And it's you give it more of a flip, not like a Frisbee, but more of like a flip up. So it goes up and arcs like that. But generally the flatter the bag is, as it's like a pancake, you want it to land really, really flat, because it's about, I think it's a 6x6, you know, generally like a 1 pound bag, and it's filled with these synthetic like resin beads. And so, you know, you want to dissipate those out and make the bag as flat as possible. And so it's more predictable when it lands on the board. You know, it's either, if it's tilted slide, it's going to go right. If it's tilted left, it's going to go this way. But if it's generally flat, it's going to land, dissipate, and go straight and slide in. That's the flatter the bag, the better. The really good players that have the flat bag are very good. And then they're good enough. And then there's all variations after that. But generally a flat, medium rotation spin is the best to get it to land and as flat as possible to dissipate the energy. And it's more for predictability of what the bag is going to do.
That makes sense.
These boards are pretty slippery sometimes. I mean, it's hard to keep them on the board, even for, I mean, pros miss the board a lot, you know, because they're they like, not a lot, but they'll miss a few in a round, you know, and you're like, or in a game, and you're like, okay, yeah, it's, everybody's human, you know, you just throw a little bit too hard, it's going to go off, you know. So there's different techniques, but the flatter it is, the better.
Yeah. Well, that would be a huge difference then between casual players and people who are doing tournaments and stuff.
Yeah. Most casual players will take it and just, you know, take it like this and throw it. And then it's kind of like a ball. You could do that. Like, that's how my sister and I got second place in that tournament. We had no idea. We could just throw it straight. We could throw it straight and get close to the hole. But then once we started spinning it, or, you know, it was just so much more consistent, you know. So it's, I'm going to do a tutorial, I think, next week on just how to grab it and you know, just spin the bag to get a flat bag for a basic slide in, you know. But that's the best. But yeah, you can still get it in, you know, throwing it like that, but it's just really unpredictable. Sometimes it'll land and bounce right. Sometimes it'll land and bounce left. Sometimes it'll land and roll back or forward, you know. This way, you know, the consistency every single time. I mean, I grab the bag exactly the same way, seam up, put my thumb in the same exact spot. Once I get the grip, I don't move it, and then do my throw. So yeah,
that's the stuff people probably don't know, because like what I was saying before, like the difference between just playing for fun and playing professionally, like and even I think people just like however is comfortable, if it's like a underhand baseball, like whatever it is. Is there like a normal trajectory from going from playing recreationally to then a tournament to then how you get on ESPN or in like a professional setting? Is like a normal path to doing that? Is it just playing tournaments? Or
yeah, so I think there's a couple leagues that you could be a professional in, but the main one is the ACL, the American Cornhole League, and you basically they select a certain set amount of pros like each year, but it's all based off of how you play in tournaments. And so they have so many tournaments in that league, and you have to, you know, do so well. You know, so many, they have, you know, these ratings and everything, and they track your progress. If you have to go to the specific tournaments, they track your numbers, and you go, and then they have these larger tournaments that they actually put on, you know, all over. And depending on how you do there, then you apply for it, and they look, and they select a pool, and then it'd be, here are our pros for the 2021 season, you know, and it's a couple hundred people. And then you sign a contract with them, and then I don't really know how many tournaments they have each season, but it's a handful, and it's all over well, it's not really all over the country. It's mainly in the East Coast, South, you know, ACL is out of North Carolina, but they play Midwest all the way to the East Coast and to the South and stuff like that. So that's kind of the normal trajectory for it, but you got to play in it takes a lot of time, and you got to like do well in certain, like in critical tournaments to get a certain ranking, you know, in your area, regionally, you know, like how you would move up and then nationally go there. They have like a national rank and regional rank.
Sure.
There's other better players out there, but they just don't have the time to enter into that, you know?
Sure.
So
it's kind of a meritocracy though. Like if you're one of the best, like you're going to, as long as you apply yourself, you're going to move on.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And then those tournaments that you see, like those guys that are on ESPN, they get on the stage, like they call it the stage. It's a 3-day, or actually it's a full week of playing all day long. Right. And they play the best players, and then they rank themselves there. Before those guys got on there, who knows how many games they played, got
Right.
through, and then they're like, oh, well, now you're in the semifinals. And then so those players that get on there have beaten all these other extraordinary players already. And those games are probably at like 2 a.m. It's
That's
not
crazy.
live. Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
live. Like they'd be like, man, we filmed that at like 2:30 a.m. on Friday. And now we're gonna make the broadcast. It's like all day long. So they might have thrown 1,000 bags in competition that day or something. And they've got
Well, yeah.
out of those 1,000, how many do they get in? And they're really
Well,
good.
Before watching on TV, you don't know how much practice and everything's gone into getting those guys there. Like, it's probably an insane amount of work in tournaments, and in your case, like the trick shots and just hearing about the practice for the trick shots, like how many times you have to fail for that. It's a lot like skateboarding. That's a good analogy for it.
That's the way that I look at it. You look at something, it's a challenge. Mentally it's a challenge. Like skateboarding, you got a physical challenge too, because you fall, you're going to get hurt. Then you got to deal with your, the fearful emotions and overcome those and stuff like that. That like the trick shots and stuff. What I was running into, we played a tournament this weekend. I got second, but like I was having trouble scoring because I've just been playing by myself and just throwing,
Oh yeah.
Like, wait, okay.
Oh yeah, gotta get points. Yeah.
Okay, and I'm like, you update the points and stuff, and I was like, train wreck. This guy's like, wait, what? I'm like, sorry, man. I've only been playing like by myself, but like I was doing really well, but I just couldn't. Like, I got to get my mind. Now we're starting to play more tournaments, and I'm back into it. And my mind was all on trick shots, and I always just played by myself. Like, you don't keep score. You just get as many as you can in, or the trick shots or whatever.
Yeah. Well, the trick shots are awesome, and it's a way to get people interested in the sport in general. Like, just from watching the videos, like I had more questions about playing professionally in tournaments and stuff. So I think it's just an awesome thing to keep up. I read, before I let you go, I read on some article about you might use this as a way to eventually raise money for military families.
Yeah, I would really love to do that. So we formed a couple businesses, and we're going to start a nonprofit here soon. We're in the process of that off one of the businesses, and I want to tie it into this because they had a campaign called Trick Shots for Good when the quarantine kind of kicked off, and it was sponsored by Johnsonville, and they donated, I think, $100,000 to donate to the Jimmy V Foundation for cancer research. And so it was like I think it was a 6 or 7 week or 8 week maybe pseudo competition, I guess. It wasn't really a competition, but it was like every trick shot that gets posted with this hashtag, they're going to donate so much to this, right? And I was on, they featured mine the last week on the broadcast at ESPN, and he essentially said that I won. If it was like, for this Trick Shots campaign for good, Washed Up Warrior, the number one prize has got to go to him. There's no prize, but I saw that and I was like, wow, okay, well, if they could do that, then we could do a lot with that once we get everything set in place. And I'd like to actually do trick shot type like a campaign very similar to that, because I think people would be interested into it. Any trick shot that they could put up. And really it's focused towards special operations family members that are left behind after the soldier has been killed or whatnot. Because we often forget about them, and really we're kind of focused on the soldier a lot. What they did and, whatever act they did before they died and stuff like that. But then there's a lot of attention on families in the beginning, but then it goes away because people just don't have time. And, everyone pours their, and the special operations community is really good at taking care of its own folks. But we could constantly get better at that. And we want to take care of the families for years down the road, grants for any kind of scholarship they need, or a small business if a spouse and or children want to start, small business or something like that. I mean, we'll have to, set it up properly and all that, but that's kind of the idea. And I think we can do a good job, because I'm tied in with a lot of charities that already have, that platform, and we would partner up with them, and, like the Green Beret Foundation or the Special Operations Warrior Foundation, and, be trick shots for, we come up with a name or whatever. And I really would like to do that. And I think even if we raise $100, it's still something we didn't have before.
For sure. Yeah. You have the connections, and also it's just an entertaining way to pull people in.
Yeah.
Do you have an online home for the nonprofit, or is it you're still developing?
We just had a meeting yesterday about how we're going to set it up and stuff. So I'll do that. It's going to take a little bit to get it all set up, to figure out, how we can get it officially set up to receive all the donations and where they're going and all that stuff. So, yeah. So
Awesome. Well, where can people find you right now on online, Instagram, Twitter?
Yeah, so it's all the same name. It's just at Washed Up Warrior. And so I don't have Twitter. I just have an Instagram page, a TikTok page, and Facebook. And we have a YouTube page too. So, but it's all the same, at Washed Up Warrior.
Thanks so much, Dan. Appreciate it.